Does everything have a bright side to it? Of course. It doesn't always outweigh the negatives, but everything has a bright side to it. This makes happiness a choice. And here we say that the discipline of being happy is the ultimate discipline. With that said, welcome to the Ultimate Discipline Podcast, where we meet with people who are practitioners of this exact discipline, and we hear their cool stories of cultivating happiness through challenges in their life. I am your host, Sean Greenspan. Let's get to it. Scott, happy Friday, man.
Happy Friday.
Thank you so much for making some time to meet with me and share your knowledge.
Yeah, super excited to have this conversation.
Dude, before we get into it, I'll tell everyone how I met Scott and give you a chance to maybe introduce yourself a little. But so for those that don't know, I held a retreat with my buddy Mike Gazzo, and he was like, "Hey, we're gonna hold it with my friend Love and Scott." And I was like, "Cool." And me and Mike are close, so I just trusted him. I was like, "Cool." If these guys are part of the team, they're part of the team. Um, and the retreat was called Rise and Flow. We're going to do many more of them. They're about helping people get into and just live in the flow state for the weekend and hopefully take that with them through their life. So we did some breath work, cold exposure, some plant medicine, some conscious cooking, some intense workouts, journaling, lots of cool stuff. I'm a foodie. I was definitely stoked about the food element of things. But Scott, I definitely came in as like, oh, it's a nice thing to have that we have like a chef there, right? Like this is really what my thought was. Like that's going to be really nice, someone that's actually going to make decent food and take care of that. We all have like logistical things we unfortunately have to handle, and it's going to be nice to have that. And I'm not just saying this, Scott. Like it was an absolute highlight of the whole trip the way that you, even from before the trip, I was like, Scott, just give me a list what you need and I'll buy it. He's like, oh, no. We need to source this mindfully from, the right partners. From the second that we interacted, a lot of intentional behaviors coming from you, a lot of gratitude towards the food, a lot of gratitude and, just towards like everyone being there and you trying to like serve them the best you can. And the feedback from everyone, everyone loved our cooking modules, loved learning about what you have to say. Dude, I find myself like trying to piece sentences together, teaching what you've been teaching. Dude, I can't tell you how like much like your presence there just blew the whole thing out of the water for me, and I loved it, man. So I want to tell you how grateful I am and thankful I am that you came and just crushed it like you did. And I'd love if you don't mind giving a little background about yourself and how you look at, let's just call it food, now and the role that plays in our lives.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. The retreat was amazing. Lots of really powerful moments, and can't wait to do more of them. Um, yeah, so a little bit about me. I feel like it's important to always start where my relationship with food began and kind of how I got here. When I grew up in your typical Irish American household. Meat and potatoes. Um, in the era where kind of fast food was just starting to take off, processed food, and sorry, you're gonna see my cat Sesame jump up every once in a while. And my parents did the best they could with the knowledge they had, and so did I. I struggled a lot with food from the beginning. At 15, I was like 215 pounds. I was very overweight. And I just didn't know what could be yet. I saw what my parents put in front of me, and I thought that was it. I thought that was, how we're supposed to eat. And it really took my uncles coming over with weird things like mussels and smoking turkeys and stuff that really ignited my passion for food. I was like, there's so much out there that we don't see on a daily basis if you're just eating in a household. Um, from there, I kind of went on. I had dreams of being a doctor. Um, I went to medical school and realized long hours in a chemistry lab just weren't for me. So when I was stressed, I found myself at the stove. I found myself cooking. I found myself just taking on these ridiculous recipes that were long, and I would just bury myself in them to make them as I can. And I remember that my sister looked at me one day and was like, "What are you doing?" It's like, why aren't you doing this? It's like when you're in your most emotional state, this is your source to find relief. This is your source to find happiness. Like, why aren't you just doing this? So I kind of laughed and I didn't really take it seriously. But then 2 months later, I was up in Poughkeepsie, enrolling in the Culinary Institute of America. So I just dove right in. Very hard culinary school. It was like boot camp, clean shaven, freshly pressed linens. You miss a class, you fail that semester. So really from there, dove in deep into food in a restaurant industry lifestyle. So from there, I fueled my stress with even more cooking to a point where it borderlined an issue. I ended up diving in with the long hours, the stress, the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse, um, and just eating pure luxury all day, every day. The best I can find, the best restaurants there are. And I saw it take a turn. It really took a dark turn. And, you know, it's tough to look back at because when you're in that mindset and you're in that work, you don't realize the damage you're doing to yourself. You don't realize what loop you're caught in. And, from there, working in some of the best restaurants in New York City, Tribeca Grill, Oceana, um, I opened 15 restaurants in 5 years. I won Chopped. I was on Beat Bobby Flay. I did it all. I flew all over the U.S. cooking, and it really just hit burnout really hard. Um, Pandemic came and kind of everything shut down a little bit. And from there, I opened a donation kitchen. I worked with someone in New Jersey who owns a restaurant called Wealth Kitchen. He has a farm in upstate New York, and we serve 6,500 meals a week, everything from a farm. We would drive up there, 2, 3 times a week. We would gather everything from the farm. We'd bring it back to a kitchen we rented out just to crank out food and pump out as much food as we can. And it was really an eye-opening experience of like, when I was at Michelin Stars, we sourced the best food we can get, but it was all from a farm, but we weren't putting our hands in the soil. We weren't putting out, whatever the cabbage. We weren't pulling the sweet potatoes. And it really opened my eyes a lot. Um, and then from there, I kind of had one of the most spiritually awakening experiences of my life out in Peru. And that's when it all kind of came to a full circle for me. This is recently. This was a year ago, a little over a year ago. And that experience really opened my eyes to the fact that we are so much more than we think. We are, 7.2 trillion cells somehow put in this human form. And just that number alone and that structure of looking at a human and being it all put together, to think that there's not something we're missing from being connected with our food just blew my mind. Knowing what, soil's a hot topic now, regenerative farming's a hot topic now, and to think that, like, the fact that some of us are living our whole lives without ever stepping foot of where our food comes from is missing a whole slew of health opportunities. So from there, I really gained control of my health, both physically, mentally, um, and really put that as the main focus of how I eat. Um, and from there, I just started sourcing everything I can as local. I started growing everything I can. I tried to cut my house almost completely of anything processed, and really got back to how we're supposed to eat.
Yeah. I appreciate you kind of opening up about the background there. I know it's not always the easiest, but I think it paints a good picture for people. And if you had to talk about what you're most passionate about right now, um, because you have this fine dining background and skill set. I don't That's not really what stokes your fire. It's cool, and I know you enjoy, like, it's fun to play with, right? Do once in a while. But what really, like, stokes your fire as it relates to food in general?
It right now, it's got to be. It's funny, man. It's really the sourcing right now. It's really getting to every farm I can in my area and just talking to them. Hey, what are you doing? What are your practices? And deciding from there if it's kind of someone I want to invest into. If it's someone that fits how I see farming and agriculture, and are they caring about the soil? From there, I want to give it to everyone. I want to say, okay, great. You are raising your beef right. I want everyone to have it. I need to get it out to everyone. So, this coming Monday will be our first beef share. So I've been working with a ranch down the street that does all grass fed, grass finished, regenerative, organic, raised. Um, and I bought a half a cow. I met the half a cow. I was on the land with the cow. I was looking at the grass, the soil, and to find like minded people and bring them together and be able to provide this to them is what's really getting me kind of
Yeah, yeah,
up right now. And it's just it's so important to get back to this farmer life.
yeah. It, you know, I'm hoping that we see something that we're kind of starting to see a little bit on the business side, where we see a lot of small businesses, right?
Yeah.
What I love more than anything is like, my friends tell me they started a business, right? Like, and like, small businesses, like, I love that, like, I'm a small marketing agency and my clients are small businesses. Like, that's where we need to be, like, where it's much more sustainable, better for, like, everyone. And there's just less, I don't want to say bureaucracy. It's just like, it's more minds getting out there than just like, okay, here's like the one thought, and there's a trickle down effect.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't want to spend too much time on it because people can look it up, but can you describe the importance, or can you define and describe a little bit about regenerative organic, and then, um, yeah, start there if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So regenerative organic. I Regenerative organic is basically understanding the full process of farming, right? So currently most of our farming is monocrop farming, We are saying that our corn and our soy is subsidized by the government, so they're going to get the most amount of money for it. So what we do is we just kind of take all the corn and soy, we plot it across as much land as we can. We spray it with a bunch of pesticides, herbicides, glyphosate, which we can get into later, and it does nothing for us. They get the crops and they're just destroying the soil. They're destroying the earth. All those pesticides are running off. So regenerative organic is thinking of the whole system. How can we plant this specific thing that then feeds this specific animal that then feeds us in return, and the waste from all of that, whether it's plant or animal, goes back into the soil, which then produces a healthier plant next time, which then gets ate by the cow. Then his byproduct not only feeds us, but feeds the soil again. Full cycle of improving soil health back. So those things that we're eating are in their highest point of nutrition. Because right now, if we're not farming organically, in 50 years, there will be no topsoil. So that pepper that we're planting will have almost zero nutritional value to it.
How exciting.
How exciting. That micro-rhizin, that is way more than 7.3 trillion cells that we are. It's trillions and trillions of bacteria, fungi, all of that. When that goes away, I don't know what's going to happen. It's missing things. So that full cycle, right? And where that differs from organic, you can be an organic farmer, which is great. But an organic farmer is going to grow its organic lettuce. And they're just going to continuously grow that in an organic way, right? But that misses a bunch of factors. It's not really replenishing the soil unless they're cutting it up and using it as compost when they have scraps. But you're not completing the whole cycle. You're just continuously planting it. And with the livestock in there, it's not continuously building this soil
and tell me a little bit about glyphosate.
health. Sure. So glyphosate. Um, I feel like I want to give my spiel of, that this gets very dark and heavy. It's not my intended purpose, right? I want to also realize that I'm not here to picket or boycott. I'm not here to say these guys are bad, boycott this company. There's definitely room in the world for protest when it's right and not violent, but I'm not here to do that. Our current agricultural system is built by us. Whether you want to accept that or not, it's built by us because of
Decision making.
it's it. It's convenience. We didn't want to keep growing. We didn't know how. We wanted just straight instant gratification.
Yeah, that's something that I actually appreciate you bringing up because the real change in this world like comes from changing your decision. Like, I know it's like a cliche saying, but like people vote with their wallets, right? Like,
Yep.
I know a lot of people that I know someone that works in the plastic industry and only drinks single-use plastic water bottles and gets double bags at the grocery stores. And I know people that believe in the environment, but take more flights and everything than anyone I know, right? It's like you can't act like you're the exception. And what everyone's thought is like like I'm not gonna make a difference, right? If I stop flying or stop using fuel, whatever. And I'm not saying stop flying. I travel, plenty. But it really comes down to decision making. And that's something that I've tried to I'm struggling to get these sentences out, Scott. That's something that I've tried pretty hard to take to heart, right? Like, was that just like I'm not special, right? Like I'm not out of the circle. Like everyone's average, most likely, right? Like statistically, everyone's average, right? So um you whatever if you don't if I guess if you're not taking action like from a behavioral standpoint, not just from like a communication standpoint, nothing's going to change. I think that happens with politics a lot too. How many people do you know complain about certain presidents, parties, whatever, and like I'm like, are you out there like knocking on doors? Are you
Yeah,
changing the way you behave, or are you just like watching the news and complaining?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I struggled with that for a while too. Like, yeah, you tell me my dollar matters to $1 trillion company. Like, what is my $2 gonna make a difference? But
I still struggle with right, like
yeah, and I think that's also we need to like expand the view a little bit on that because yes, that's a singular action, but that singular action might be observed by someone that's next to you doing it. You, they might overhear it, and you don't know who it's going to connect with and ripple out from there. So I think when we kind of live in that mindset, it's just shutting off that effect to spread out anywhere. You're saying I can't teach anyone this. Yeah. So I mean,
so glyphosate.
not do that with glyphosate because we need to get this out there. Um, no glyphosate. Glyphosate is um, most commonly known as Roundup. It is a herbicide and a pesticide. Its origins are from World War II. It was created by the same chemist that created the gas for the concentration camps. It was then altered and bought by a U.S. company. Bayer and Monsanto are kind of the biggest sprayers of it. Um, and they altered it to basically kill weeds and pests and anything else. So that way, when they grow this corn and soy, they can spray this Roundup and glyphosate all over it. That way, no pests can live in it, no herbs can or no weeds can come, nothing can be in the soil that could harm their crops. It's basically guaranteeing that there'll be no life, there'll be no nature in this field. It'll just sprout out what they want, they take it and they do it again. The problem with this is that it doesn't wash off, right? It's not like you can spray this, you take it into the kitchen, you spray it on your lettuce, it grows perfectly, you bring it into your kitchen, you rinse it off, and that's it. It stays, right? And it goes so much bigger than that. Not only is it sprayed on almost everything that's not organic, but it's also all the feed that goes to these horribly farmed industrial cows, chickens, all that feed goes into there, right? So now they digest it, then we eat that protein. It's still in us now. It doesn't go away, right? Not only that, it now kills all the soil. So when we spray these billions of gallons every year, it's now running off of the soil because there's no topsoil to hold it in. So now it's running into all of our rivers. If you look at the Mississippi River, it has the highest rate of cancer all along that Mississippi River because it's running off into the water stream. It's also going into the air now. Recent studies shown that actually it's starting to make its way into our brain. It's everywhere. And if we don't stop spraying it, it's just going to get worse and worse. So, glyphosate in itself is a chemical that, when we ingest it into our body, breaks our tight junctions. So, your tight junctions are basically these barriers in your gut, your blood lining, your brain lining, that when we eat things, it prevents toxins from going into our bloodstream, right? So once we have this glyphosate, these bonds break. So now anything that flows over it, these toxins are free to just go into your system. This causes, as you can imagine, an array of issues, causing cancer, causing lots of immune disease, right? Most importantly, not most importantly, but it causes us to lose our sense of self. I say that because in our gut is 6 pounds of bacteria. 6 pounds, billions and trillions of different, bacteria and viruses. It's known that this is our second brain. You make a lot of your decisions from your gut, right? Go with your. And if that is destroyed by glyphosate and being filled with toxins, you're not making safe decisions. It is a huge issue, and studies are starting to come out that are showing its giant impacts. So I'm really pushing for everyone to switch to this regenerative organic lifestyle. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And I get a little choked up with that endpoint, talking about it making you lose your sense of self and changing your decision making, because that's a compounding effect,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
and it's a little don't want to make this a dark podcast here, but I do want to make it a informative and honest one.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, it's it's pretty scary, and I it's a bummer that lettuce cannot be healthy. I'll just put it that way. It's a bummer that just going to the store and getting some salad cannot be healthy. That stinks. So what can we do about this? So ideally, we can shop at regenerative organic farms near us. I'm actually gonna check my phone, because before this, I texted my mom, and because our local farms only open Fridays, um, and yeah, she just said that she can go. So
Nice.
we're gonna go check out the one near her today. They have beef, lamb, chicken, turkey, pasture raised eggs, and then seasonal vegetables. And they're even as like a really small local farm, they're starting to do what some of these like big companies are doing. And if you come by every Friday, they'll give you either an 8, 12, or 16 pound box of seasonal fruits and veggies. um, I mean, dude, how cool is that?
Yeah.
um, so there's a website that people can go to find regenerative organic farms near them.
Yep.
um, if that seems like a big lift, if someone lives in Manhattan, if that's not realistic, maybe financially, even though I found what you said to be true, it's really not more expensive because you're cutting out the middleman. You're buying it straight from the source.
Yep.
Um, but if that doesn't work, what would be the next best step? Trying to just buy organic?
Yeah. So you made a very good point, and I want to just touch on that topic very quickly. That is the main push right now. If you're looking to make a big drastic change outside of the city, regenerativeинternational.org, you can look up any farm. Go right to the farmer, um, and see their practices, meet with them. There's things called CSAs, and this could work both ways. People do deliver to the city, right? It's the center. There's definitely traffic coming from there. And I know a few CSAs that do deliver to different cities. So a CSA is a community share of agriculture. Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're investing in this farm. So you pay a yearly membership to a farm to help them continue to promote their farm and keep growing. As that, you get to pull out some of their profits, you know, their vegetables, their fruit, these boxes. So I think joining a CSA, if you're in the city that delivers into the city, is a great option, because not only are you supporting the farms that maybe on the weekends you take a trip out and grab some stuff to kind of stock in whatever your freezer, but that will be a continuous delivery of fresh food. vegetables, whatever they sell. Um, so luckily, we have this internet that can kind of get you these things outside. I think to your question, if you're in the city and you're looking for like an in-person grocery store experience that's providing these, um, organic as much as possible. Do your research, find that market that specializes in more organic and is, providing these farms an outlet to kind of sell their goods. Um, but we really have to be careful of greenwashing, because it's becoming a giant issue, right? So greenwashing is basically giant agriculture industry telling you they're doing something, but not really following through with it. They're altering, um, basically these new words like pasture raised and grass fed, grass finished, and regenerative organic, and all these things. They're basically using them as marketing schemes, but they're not really standing behind that movement, right? So if you look at beef as a prime example of greenwashing, someone will say they're organic, grass fed. Grass fed beef, you can say it's grass fed if you feed more than 50% of its life on grass, right? So then they can pump it with whatever the hell they want. It can be corn, soy, whatever, and still call it. So it's important to realize that it's 100% grass fed, grass finished. Um, and if you want,
And the key would be looking for the word grass finished, right?
yeah, correct. Grass finish is the big word there. There's also, um,
So you're saying that people aren't necessarily lying; they're using certain terms that should get you stoked, like grass fed.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you see that everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to see it in Whole Foods, and it comes down to like you go to Whole Foods, you see 100% grass fed beef from New Zealand or Australia. To me, I'm not going to buy that, right? Because I want it local. Someone's making it here. Someone is taking the time to raise these cows and do it properly. And the more I go pick this, oh, it's grass fed, I'll take it. I don't care that it's from Australia. You're now taking that spot and investing in it where someone in US can be selling their meat there. It goes back to what we were saying, investing your dollar.
Yeah, and I'd love to know, why is that important to you?
I personally think that we are not meant to be eating things that far away. I believe that our bodies, our spirits are supposed to be eating things that are naturally around us, that is living in the same environment, that is in the same microbiome of diversity here, right? That's what's going to fuel us to be stronger here. And I mean, Australia is far away, man. That
Yeah, it's got to be frozen and
frozen. Whole Foods gets it frozen, then it's defrosted. I don't know how long it's been frozen. It's to me, it just never mind the environmental impact of the shipping back and forth all the way. So to me, the big ones are eating something that's more local to include the biodiversity that's here. It's the environmental impact of getting it all the way here. And it's also, yeah, just the freezing and the shelf life of it.
yep,
It kind of freaks me out, honestly.
yeah. No, I appreciate the way that you talk about this, because for those that know, I can speak for Scott here. Scott's not saying everybody do this. He's saying he's done a lot of research and spent a lot of time talking to people and thinking about it, and this is what he recommends with his knowledge set. And
Yeah.
um, Everyone needs to I ultimately everyone needs to take responsibility, educate themselves. I told you before when we talked on the phone this morning, I was like, hey, honestly, I want to have you on the podcast so I can pick your brain, man. And I know you want your brain to be picked,
Yeah,
like, um, and this is I like this how I like to learn, right?
yeah,
And hopefully you appreciate it. Not gonna just take the surface level answer. I kind of like to dig and understand what's behind it. Um, and in that realm, I'd like to also talk about what I think is a more fun part of the discussion, and it's the mindful element to it. Uh, this one to me is almost like it. Like if we're talking like the 80-20 rule, this is it, right? Is the mindfulness of it. Um, so I'd like to ask, uh, when you're sourcing, preparing, eating, and digesting food, what do you like your what type of mindfulness, what type of attention, awareness do you like to bring to it, and would you like to share with people? Because I think this is what gets you really excited, is putting love into everything.
yeah. So it's a great question, and I do want to touch back on what you said. Like, I am here to just tell you what I know. I like to use the phrase that, you know, whatever sticks with you, take it, keep it. Everything else, you feel free to put it in the garbage if you don't believe in it. I'm not here to preach or tell people the way to eat. I'm telling you how I do it from experience and what's been working for me. And if you want to follow it, I'm here as a resource. Um, as far as sourcing, preparing, cooking, and eating, it's such a special moment for me. And from being on these farms and from planting and seeing it grow and all the time that goes into it, some of these things that we're eating, we don't realize takes months and months to cultivate. And then we'll just take it and we'll cut it and we'll throw some of it in the trash. It takes hundreds of people. It takes so much land. It's such a gift from Pachamama. Pachamama is kind of the earth, right? The creator of all these gifts that we have, the landscape, the ocean, all of it. Um, and she's providing so much. There's so much abundance around us. So when we source and we go out, like we're trying to find the best gift we can get for our body. And then when we go to prepare it, if we're just rushing to prepare it just to get some nutrients in us, your body feels that rush and that angst. It feels that. And when you go to digest it, it feels that like rush and stress to it. So I think when we prepare, it's important to really be with the food, the spirit, the energy it's bringing to the table, to kind of really appreciate it for what the gift that it's bringing us. And when we cook, cooking it with care, not just throwing it in a pan and just getting it hot, really cooking it to let the ingredient shine is so important. You hear a lot of chefs kind of moving in that direction. A lot of the best restaurants in the world are like, this is here it is. You'll laugh because it's like, here's your tomato, and it's just a slice of tomato on a plate that was like gently warmed up. It's like, because that tomato is so special, it's so delicious. It's been grown in the best soil. It's been nurtured after. It's an heirloom seed of tomato that's never been touched. It deserves to be on that plate. Um, so it's really bringing in that mindfulness of realizing the gifts, preparing, and getting in this meditative state of pleasure back around food, right? The pleasure of eating things. Again, we need to come back to, um, and just realizing the beauty. I really suggest that anyone just try to grow a plant. If it's a tomato, if it's anything, try and grow one season, and you will see the painstaking process of how you need to care for it and how you need to bring it to life and watch over it. And you'll get a whole new appreciation of food from when you see that cycle.
Microgreens. That's something everyone can grow.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So when we speak about growing and why it's so important, our job as a human in this life is to take the sun's energy, convert it into, yeah, or Pachamama, right? Convert it through Pachamama to be this, you know, kind of energy of carbon, right? And the closer we can get to that sun energy, the better. So Sean's hear me talk a lot about broccoli sprouts. I think broccoli sprouts, especially through the winter, is something that we can keep our bodies feeding that cycle of growth in us, right? Because you can't really grow outside unless you have a greenhouse of some sort. So naturally through winter, we're missing that cycle of turning the sun's light into energy through food. So if we can take this jar of broccoli sprouts, you can buy them on Amazon, right? Just make sure they're organic. You can get them somewhere local, that's better. But in 5 days, after just sitting on your windowsill and feeding it water, you'll have this whole jar of broccoli sprouts that are bright green and translated that sun energy into chlorophyll, right? Broccoli sprouts have the same nutritional value as 400 heads of broccoli in 1 cup. That's that's astronomical. That's wild. I've had avocado toast this morning. It's not my usual breakfast, but with a cup on it. So I just had the nutritional value of 400 heads of broccoli just by breakfast. It's wild. You hear cruciferous veg, right? Cruciferous vegetables are those winter greens, those dark leafy greens, right? Your kale, your broccoli, your collard greens, your Swiss chard. Those are the secret sauce. Those are the really nutrient dense packed veg. And listen, there's going to be some carnivores out there that tell me there's toxins in it and all this kind of stuff. I love all of you carnivores. I love all of you vegans. I love everything, right? But there's some minerals that we are missing if we exclude ourselves to one thing we eat. There's a whole array we need to be part of and realize.
Yeah. I think growing, there's a mindfulness element too. Like saying like I grew this food and ate it is really good for you. Like I'm not stoked about hunting and like killing something and get all bloody. That's just not me. But I'm gonna go hunting. Probably next hunting season with buddy in Colorado and try to go for some elk, lean meat.
Yeah.
Um because I want to do it. Am I gonna become a hunter? Probably not. Maybe. Who knows? I might like it. I have heard some people, I love backpacking. And I heard some people think it's like, say it's like backpacking with a purpose. So, hey, um, could definitely go that route. But no, I I appreciate this topic of mindfulness and like you were saying, don't just like slap it together. What I've noticed, Scott, is when it really comes down to if you really think about it, we have not agreed on a diet that's good for you. Like the world pretty much knows like the minimum, like what a good exercise program should be, right? 30 minutes cardiovascular activity with strength training 3 times a week. No one's really going to argue that. 10,000 steps is not a workout, that's a movement of the body more for muscular skeletal and some general heart health. Like these are things no one really disagrees with. Eating, no, there's not a diet that's like this is the human diet. Um, and I think it's because this mindful element to it. And I'll give you a really good example. Um, you know, everyone said, calories in versus calories out. Like you got to get this amount of macros. And then there's like your micronutrients and all this stuff as we go down. Someone like Jason, who you met at the retreat, Jason on a normal day is going to burn more calories than me. You know, he trains with maybe 3 hours to 6 hours of intense hiking in the mountains with strength training in the morning. And there's a lot of days that he fasts till like 11. He'll have like 3 eggs for breakfast, which, 200 calories. He'll have lettuce with a little olive oil and like a chicken breast on it, or maybe like peas with a chicken breast next to it for lunch, and then do like a salad with like chicken next to it for dinner. So like very low calorie. Some days, I'm not. And you'd look at him and say, "Oh wow, like he would just be like a rail." No, he's jacked, and he doesn't even lift that hard. He mainly runs, right? But he's super like mindful about how he's eating and what he's putting in his body, and it's not just shoveling it in. Excuse me. It's like he takes his time to ingest it, right? And I think his body respects that more. Where I've definitely always thought of myself as someone that needs a ton of food, right? And over the last few years, I've gotten a little busier with work, been training more. Like, dude, you heard me on the beginning of this call. I'm like, yeah, I'm just smashing a protein shake with a bowl of yogurt and nuts, right? And then right after this call, in between calls, eating healthy, but sometimes not doing the being mindful in the cooking or the eating, and sometimes both. And I find your body just, I've found this from experience, research, and of one, but your body doesn't absorb all the nutrients if you don't give it the mindfulness time to do
Yep.
that. At the retreat, we ate so mindfully. Like there was no snacks around, and I never felt the urge to snack. Right? It's funny, like with psychedelics, like people say you don't get hungry during them. I actually think it's because you're so mindful in what other things you're doing. You're just not I understand from I don't think it's a physical thing. I think it's a mental thing that like you're just so mindful in what you're doing that your body's not saying I need food,
Yeah.
because you don't. You're just so like,
You don't want to
invest.
escape the moment.
Yes, it's a distraction.
Correct. Some people use it as a tool, to go kind of veer off from where they are because where they are can be like or unpleasant.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that too. And I've tried to change my I've tried to change my environment to try to help myself with that. Like for example, especially when I'm in peak training, like when I was training for that 100 miler, running 120 miles in a week, dude. Like, when I tell you I can eat nonstop, try me. Like I can, but I would just tell myself like, I'm only gonna eat meals, and when I eat meals, take a half hour, eat a big old meal, like whatever, eat 5 meals a day. But I'm not just gonna like mindlessly snack on calls. And that's what I've been trying to do is like when I eat, eat. When I don't, and like understand it's okay to be hungry. Like for a little bit, like you don't have to shovel it in. Then just wait till you do have the time or create the time, right? Like, I mean, my little smoothie definitely didn't fill me up after a big workout this morning, but I have calls till 1. I can sit here for 3 hours, and then I'm gonna take some time and actually, I'm not even gonna eat. We're gonna go straight to that farm. I'm stoked about
Yeah.
and check that out. Well, Scott, I know we're running out of time here. I'd love to understand what's next for you. If I know that's a big sense or a big topic, but just kind of briefly touch on like what you think you want to focus on next in your world.
Yeah. So I think really I need to get into these farms as a daily profession. I need to be there. I think next is taking this information I have and really sharing it out to anyone that is open to receiving it. From there, I want to teach them the tools that they can get to these farms like you are today. I want to be able to provide the resources to those local around me that can really take in these beautiful things that are being sourced. Um, so being that kind of action taker or connector from the farms, a chef, to the people. How do we get these nutritionally dense food to them and tell them how to source it mindfully and cook it mindfully. You know, when you go hunting, I struggled with that for a while, right? I really struggled with, I'm going to reintroduce beef back into my diet. You know, how do I do that mindfully with knowing that there is a death process in all of it, right? And it's about taking that few minutes to mindfully respect that spirit. If you're out there and you're able to take an elk, respect that spirit, right? Offer something back to the earth for giving you that gift. If it's a bone or if it's something, and really try and use all of it. So I think continuing to try and teach people as much as I can, or share this knowledge, and be able to be someone that can help these farms spread the beautiful things they're doing. It's really where I want to spend my days.
Dude, how beautiful. I mean, all you talked about was sharing, sharing, sharing. Um, that's awesome, man. Well, as you know, what we spoke about over the last few weeks, like you've really inspired me. Um, what I've tried to do is educate myself a little bit more. I've probably fallen short there, and this is part of that. Is just, I've actually been rereading through our cookbook that we had from our retreat, doing a little bit of research, being very cautious about like what I'm putting in my body. And it's funny, the trickle down effect is, I just been home for 4 weeks and tried to lead by example, if you will, where I just kind of told my family, like, I have some new things in my diet that I don't really waffle on. So like, I don't want to push that on you guys, but it might be convenient for us to eat similarly,
Yeah,
while we're here, if we're trying to eat together. And, everyone was pretty open to it. Um, or at least, inquisitive about it. Right. Which shares it. And I felt coming, it, and then turns them asking me questions about it. Right.
yeah,
um, Much more than me saying like, "Hey, do this, do this, do this." Because again, you're saying you're no expert. I'm definitely no expert, right? But I'm passionate about what this can do. I'm passionate about everyone um, being connected to Pachamama. That's what I'm passionate about. Living healthy, spiritually, physically, and that's what stokes my fire. As I said earlier in the call, I thought that was goofy.
yeah.
um, well, dude,
She needs healing, and the more
she does.
Pachamama, the more gifts she's going to provide. So we give back, she gives back.
Hell yeah, man.
But yeah,
Well, dude,
like I saw one thing. I mean, just to what you're talking about, like 2 weeks ago, Mike told me he was going over his nanas who loves to make meatballs, right? It's even that small step of like, he reached out to me, hey Scott, where can I get some good ground beef from a farm, right? And he brought it over and he said, hey, Nana, would you mind using this beef I got from a really cool farm instead of the beef you usually use for meatballs? Fine. She's not going to question it. And there you are taking a small change to show her why you're eating this grass fed beef instead of something she was getting from the supermarket.
hell yeah, man. It's just it. The bottom line, in my opinion, is love. It all just comes down to
Yeah.
love in the interactions. Hey, cat. In the interactions, and every element of it. Scott, a lot of gratitude, man, for you joining today. I much appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person. Um, we have that. I don't know if Mike told you about the retreat we're gonna try to do in April, um, in Arizona with you. So we'll have to chat about that soon.
Oh my God, me and Mike are going to be all new people in April.
Yeah. I know. All right, we'll definitely catch up offline here, but
Yeah,
sending my love, man, and we'll talk soon. And just thank you again for coming on.
of course, man. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for watching today's episode. If you got something out of this, it would mean so much if you could just take a second and give us a rating on whatever platform you're watching it on. And it would mean so much to the world if you could just find one person that you think this message resonates with and you can share that with them. Thank you so much for your support. Looking forward to share the next episode with you.